is a new item and tool that you could use. So what we're going to be doing today is teaching you how to make best use of the free available resources that are out there to make AI work for you. If you're concerned that AI is going to replace you, I want you to put those fears to rest, and you'll understand why as we go through this presentation. There are people out there, and I call them AI alarmists because there's really not like a term for them yet, but think of these people as the people that tell you that AI is going to come and take your job. But it's just not true. What really is true is that people with AI are going to replace people that are not using AI. So you want to stay ahead of the curve, and by being in this presentation today, I can tell that you do want to stay ahead of the curve, but that's what's going to be critical to keeping you in the position that you want to be in and making sure you get the opportunities that you're looking for in the future. So if you've ever thought they want you to lose your job, they probably do in a sense. And again, we're going to solve this for you. So we're here to show you how you can use AI to supercharge your spreadsheets. So my goal for this web class for you as we go through, I want to help you get an understanding of how AI can be a powerful tool for you instead of a threat. And I think that's going to be the ultimate shift. If that shift happens in your mindset as we go through this, then we have done our job, because AI is a tool for you that can make you and your life a lot easier and better. So stick around. And the other thing is, we want to stick around to the end of this video. We're going to be giving out free access to all of our templates and courses, which is a $499 value for free, absolutely for free. And I'll tell you more about that as we get to the end of the presentation. So we're going to be going through a lot, and then I'm going to give you what is I think some of the best offer I've ever seen in this market. And I think it's going to be really exciting for you. You're going to get access to a lot of really good tools, and you're going to get a shortcut for how you can make what you learned today even more impactful. So stick around to the end. You're going to get that free access to Simple Sheets, which will have all those templates as well as all of our courses and trainings when you get there. So let's move forward. I want to be very clear that the only way to make AI work for you and not against you and protect your job is to enhance it. It's to use it to enhance your spreadsheets. And I'm also going to talk about how our templates can help you with that. So let's jump in. Okay, who am I? Why should you listen to me? I think it's always a question you should ask of anybody you're listening to in any type of medium, whether it be audio or video or written word, right? Who is the person that put this down? Why does this person have the ability to speak on this topic? So this is me. I am a Microsoft alumni. This is me presenting at Microsoft a number of years ago. So I spent the first number of years of my career at Microsoft before transitioning out and working on the projects that, like Simple Sheets, that you are familiar with. Microsoft would run the world on Excel if they could. This is one of the things I learned very quickly working at Microsoft. You jump into a big company, and I'm sure many of you have had the same experience. If you work at a big company, you kind of think that they've got all these complex tools and really sleek systems to work through all these problems. I mean, Microsoft just had Excel, and they use that for every single thing. So I was using Excel every single day for arguably in some days my entire day, but usually at least 4 to 6 hours of my day was spent in Excel making spreadsheets, project plans, keeping track of inventory, all sorts of things that I needed to do, and it was all spreadsheet based because everything we were doing was spreadsheet based. So I've built thousands and thousands of spreadsheets over my career, and not just at Microsoft, but obviously since I've transitioned out doing reporting and other things for clients and obviously building Simple Sheets, all of this, I've built thousands and thousands of spreadsheets. So I think I've put in my time. I've definitely worked with spreadsheets. I probably not the most of anybody, but I've spent a lot of time in spreadsheets, and I am confident that I can help you understand how to be better in yours. So my story, as I kind of mentioned, I started at Microsoft, and I was overworked creating new spreadsheets daily. I desperately needed a way to streamline my work. And this is where the templates came in. I wanted to spend more of my time on projects that could actually advance my career and give me new opportunities rather than just creating new spreadsheets over and over again. So at the time, I was trying to build each spreadsheet from scratch. There was no ChatGPT, right? Obviously very new software, and we will talk about that. But it was one of the things that inspired me to launch and be a part of Simple Sheets, because I knew how important getting access to templates that could streamline my spreadsheet work could be. So if you're doing a lot of work in Excel or Google Sheets, either one, you're going to need things that make it easier for you if you are somebody that's in a position like me, and that's where templates became super, super important. So how does this apply to you? So if you've ever been stuck staring at a blank spreadsheet, I've been there many, many times. If you're afraid that AI will take your job away, we can all relate, right? We all hear that out in the news today. And if you're unsure what the future holds, It's going to be okay. And we're going to go through today and teach you some things that help you get ahead of the curve so that you're able to protect your opportunities and your advancement in the future if this is something that you continue to pursue, because AI can make you more powerful than ever. Let's jump to the next slide. So today's plan, we're going to be covering three areas that I think will help you start to use ChatGPT. We're going to be using ChatGPT as the primary tool, and you'll see at the end I'm going to give you some really awesome shortcuts and ways to leapfrog everything we've learned and just supercharge everything that we're going to go through. But I want to start with ChatGPT because it is a free tool available to all of you. Just go to the website, sign up. Doesn't cost you a single dime to use it. So I want to give you something you can use today, right? That's the whole point of this presentation, is to give you value that you can use right here and now without you putting any money down. But then I'm also going to give you ways that with just a little bit extra, you can take it so much further. And we'll get to that later on in the video. But we'll be covering three big AI secrets that can make the most of those free tools. So we're going to be covering how to collaborate with ease with ChatGPT. This is something I don't hear a lot of people talk about. It's my favorite thing to do with ChatGPT in my spreadsheets, because I am working with a lot of other people at times, and you likely are as well. Or I'm getting new spreadsheets from people that have already worked on them and they haven't given me much context as to how the spreadsheet was built, right? Because I didn't build it. This is something that, again, I don't see many people talking about, but it is my favorite thing and my top secret for how you can use ChatGPT to supercharge your spreadsheet life. We're going to talk about how you can use ChatGPT to write those complex formulas that you might be struggling with, or you may just not fully want to do yourself, right? So we'll talk about that. I'm going to go through some demos of both of these. Actually, all three of these I'm going to go through demos and show you with ChatGPT. We're going to pull it over. We're going to go through it together, and then we'll be able to use it and give you some real-time access to how that works. And then we're going to finish with some prompt engineering. So that is the plan for today. If you could drop a like on this video right now, just to let me know that you're enjoying what we're going to be covering, that would be awesome. And with further ado, let's dive right in. So secret number one is going to be how to collaborate with ease using ChatGPT, like we just talked about a second ago. So one of the things that I find really tricky with spreadsheets, especially when you're working with others, is how do you make it possible for ChatGPT or other things to make it easier for you to collaborate, right? ChatGPT, a lot of people talk about formulas and its ability to create formulas for you, which again, we will talk about in secret number two, but it is a much more powerful tool for collaborating. And what it is useful for, and you'll see here in a second in the demo, is better understanding what your coworkers or what your lab partners, classmates, whoever you're working with, right? Whoever you have that you're sharing that spreadsheet with, what have they been doing inside the spreadsheet? And what do those formulas that they've written actually do? Because if you've ever stared at a formula and been confused about, okay, I don't know how this is working or what they put in here, or this formula is just super long, right? Maybe it's multiple lines long inside of your formula editor. It's hard to parse that out for anybody. I don't care how experienced you are with spreadsheets, to go through and parse out all those pieces and understand each element of a complex formula. It is significantly time consuming, right? If you are trying to parse out something that's a couple lines long, right? You may be spending 10, 15, 20 minutes understanding what that formula is doing and why it's getting the result it is, which in many cases is what you're going to be needing to do to better understand how that spreadsheet was constructed so that you can do the most to create the biggest impact. So let's go through a demo here in a second, and I'll show you how you can use this to collaborate with ease. Again, complex spreadsheets are very difficult to communicate with others, and ChatGPT can enable you to create easier documentation, which we'll talk about in a minute as well. I know documentation is not typically something that everybody likes to create with their spreadsheets. It's certainly something that is useful, and this is one of the things that oftentimes gets left behind, and not just with spreadsheets, but also with code. When people are programming, right, it's hard for people to take a step back and document what they wrote. ChatGPT can also help you with that quite a bit. It's one of those things that just depends on if it fits your environment. The understanding of complex formulas, which is the demo we're going to go through, is I think a little bit more universally applicable for everybody. So that's what we're going to be talking about. But just know in the AI masterclass that we have that you'll get free access to if you stick around till the end, that will show you how to also build out documentation for your spreadsheets, which can certainly be useful as well. So in this demo, I'm going to minimize our presentation here. I'm going to open up our ChatGPT window and pull it over here. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using ChatGPT to analyze those formulas that we just had in that presentation. So we've got this really complex formula right here, one that, yes, this one's not the most complex formula in the world, but this still has a number of elements in it, right? It's got a couple of if statements, actually got 4 of them. It's got some other functions that are going on, right? So understanding this at first glance would take you, even something that, again, this is not as complicated as I've seen some formulas, and I'm sure you've seen many that are far more complicated than this, but even understanding this one is going to take us a little bit. But ChatGPT can make this a lot easier for us. So let's just grab this. We're going to copy this. And we're going to go back to ChatGPT. And I am going to just ask ChatGPT, help me understand how this formula works. And we're just going to put in that formula right there. I'm actually going to remove my quotation there. I misspelled understand. Punctuation and spelling, not super critical with ChatGPT, but we're just going to do that. And you'll see it starts to break apart what is going on in this formula, right? So I don't have to go through and understand all this. All I need to do is ask ChatGPT. ChatGPT jumps in, starts parsing it out for me, telling me what every single thing does in this formula. And I can just read these words in plain language, plain English here, and understand what's going on, right? So it's telling me you've got this first if statement, which is the formula checks for 2 conditions, right? Whether cell A1 is 100 or higher, or condition 2, B1 equals yes. And then if it does, it proceeds with the calculations, right? Which is a sum of C1 through C10, and then it multiplies that by D1. And I won't go through all this in depth because there's obviously a lot here to go through, but there is a lot in here that you can start to parse out from what is being shown, right? So instead of me going through and understanding all this from this formula line right here, I've got it all written out in plain English, easy to understand, simple to use. It makes that collaboration so much more easier because now I can understand the work that my coworker had done, right? And maybe they just handed me the spreadsheet, walked away, went on with their daily life, and I needed to do this on my own, right? This makes this so much easier for me. So let's do another example here just so you can get a little bit more insight into how it works. So we've got this formula, again, not the most complex in the world, but these are kind of just meant as examples, right? So you've got some sum ifs in here. We've got an if error. We've got an average if. So let's go in and copy this one. We're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to jump back to ChatGPT, and we're going to do the exact same thing, right? And you can do this in the same conversation window, the same conversation. We'll talk about conversations later. They are really important when it comes to building out complex formulas and understanding your data. We'll talk about the single conversation method, which we'll get to. But when you're doing things like this, you can, of course, do it in the same window if you want. So I'll do the same thing. And we'll put that in there and press enter. And sometimes you got to scroll down to see the text being generated by ChatGPT, but you'll see here it is pulling in all of this information. And again, it's identified those formulas or those functions that are existing inside of that formula, and it's breaking them out for us and explaining what each does, right? Of course, context is important on this, and we'll talk about why context is so important with all of this in the next secret that we'll talk about, which will be the complex formulas one. But you'll see, obviously, I need to know what is in cell D2 through D100. ChatGPT is not going to be able to do that part of it for me, but it is going to give me all that understanding of how that formula is actually working and what is going on inside of it. So really important, really valuable way to understand complex formulas and, again, collaborate with these. And that's where I find a lot of times the value that you'll get out of your work with spreadsheets sometimes does come down a lot to how you collaborate, because collaborating with other people on your team, other people in your work environment, other people in your school, whatever environment you're in, is going to allow you to just be more impactful. And ChatGPT allows you to do this with so much more efficiency than you ever could before, right? We're talking about each of these formulas. If I was trying to understand these, I was to do this by myself, just looking at them, reading them, even with a deep understanding of spreadsheets. I'm probably spending at least 20 to 30 minutes figuring out, parsing through all these, understanding all the pieces of them, making sure I truly understand what's going on with each function. especially if I was going to go in here and edit this function, or if I wanted to move it to somewhere else in my spreadsheet, right? There's a lot of ways that that can start to trip me up and take and suck so much time out of my day. But now with ChatGPT, I just plug it in, get an answer, and boom, I'm off and running. There's nothing else I need to do. And I've probably saved myself, just in this example, right, about a half hour of my day. And that adds up over time, right? That adds up significantly over time as we continue to do this over and over and over again and use ChatGPT to solve these painful little problems that pop up when you are using spreadsheets. It makes your life so much easier and makes you just so much more efficient. So again, collaborating with ChatGPT to make it easier for you to use spreadsheets is super, super valuable, super impactful. And again, my favorite thing that I think ChatGPT has unlocked for my spreadsheet work is this. And I don't see many people talking about it. So I wanted to make sure we covered it first because it is so useful. Let's jump on next to how you can create complex formulas with ChatGPT. So let me restart our slideshow here. So we are going to talk about formulas next, right? And formulas are what everybody talks about when it comes to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is absolutely great at creating formulas. But one of the limitations that you need to keep in mind when you are working with ChatGPT, and again, I'll show you a tool that can get you around this at the end of the presentation, is ChatGPT doesn't know and see your data, right? So as you saw with our examples a minute ago, it was just putting in cell references for me, right? D2 through D100 or whatever it is, right? It wasn't actually providing exact numbers for me. And that's where ChatGPT can become a little bit tricky, right? So it can't see your data. So how can it actually write a formula for me? Well, we've kind of spoiled it a little bit with the example before, but if you give it data or context, right, and we'll talk about context as king here in a second, if you give it that context to understand where your data is in your spreadsheet, like for example, cells D1 through D100, and you say, hey, that's my sales data, it can then use that context to build those formulas for you. And we'll go through, again, a basic example and a demo, and I'll show you how this works in a second. But let's jump into a little bit more. So again, as I've been saying, context is king. So context is king is something you'll hear me talk about quite a bit when we go through and talk about ChatGPT for spreadsheets, because at the end of the day, ChatGPT only has access to the information that you give it. So giving it context for how and what your situation is, where your data is, how your tables are structured, anything you can give it is going to give ChatGPT a better chance of giving you the correct output when you ask it to solve complex problems for you, solve complex formulas, build complex formulas for you, right? Context is always going to be king when it comes to using a tool like ChatGPT and using AI, because it doesn't know what you know. It only knows what it knows. And so if it doesn't know what you know, you have to tell it what you know so you can get it to do the work that you need. And that's where we're going to start talking about, and you heard me mention this earlier, the single conversation method, which is the way to use a single conversation inside of ChatGPT to keep all that context engaged in one spot, because ChatGPT doesn't usually be able to use between different conversations. I know there have been times where they've experimented with like your whole account has context instead of just one conversation, but generally as a good rule of thumb and a good best practice is to keep all your context in one conversation. And if it's in that same conversation, any questions you ask later on, any follow-up prompting you do, which we'll talk about in secret number 3, we'll be able to reference that earlier stuff inside of that same conversation. But the minute you move on and start a different conversation, you've now lost a lot of that context. So I typically like to use a single conversation for a specific problem or a specific project. Just depends on what makes the most sense for your situation. If I'm trying to solve like a specific issue with a formula, let's say I have a complex formula, and I'm not sure why part of it's not working properly, that might be one conversation in and of itself. But if I'm trying to do some data analytics or some analysis on some data I have, that might be a single project that I have in one conversation so that I can then reference the data as I'm going. So I'm going to show you again a demo here. Let's go back, and I'm going to pull up ChatGPT again for you. And we're going to start a new chat here. And I'm going to first just ask it to generate some data. So we can just say, please generate me some example sales data. And so it's just going to create some general data for me, right? And so this is stuff I could have copy and pasted into my ChatGPT window to give it some context. Because this is an example, I'm just getting it to put together some generic data. And then it provided it in a bullet point, which I'd rather have it provided in a table. So I'm going to say, please provide the data in a table. And you'll see it's just going to then start to break it out in a table. Now, one of the things you'll see here, this is already us taking advantage of the context and the single conversation that we were just talking about, right? So I didn't have to tell it what the data was, right? It knew what data I was asking for because I have data up in the conversation, or the question that I asked before, right? So I don't have to give it that context again. And you can see why this is so important, because now if I want to reference this data, I don't need to give it this data again. It has context in this conversation about this data. So now I can start to create more complex formulas, right? And I can do this with plain English, which is what makes this so powerful. So let's just go in here and say, I want to understand the, well, we can do some simple ones first, right? So let's just say I want to understand the sum of sales for product A. I just have to ask ChatGPT to make that for me. So I say, create a formula that sums all of the sales for product A. And sometimes it's helpful to put quotes around the product A so it knows what you're exactly talking about, and it'll give you a basic formula, right? So it is using this up above, and it's assuming that this would be column B. So it's saying sum of B2 through B4, which would be these two. It looks like in this case it might actually be column C typically, but and then you'll see it's adding columns B7 through B6 or B8, which would be some of this stuff down here. So I think it's considering that the month or the year is not part of the actual data, and then it's grabbing the rest of it as the formula. But then you'll see here it is creating a formula for us, and of course it's explaining it to us as it goes so that we can understand, just as I was talking about a second ago, right? If for some reason, like this one's off by a little bit, right? I think this is probably actually going to be column C instead of B. I can then make those changes for myself as I'm going. But then I can also get more complex with the questions I ask, right? So instead of maybe asking for the sum of product A, maybe I want to say which month sell, which quarter. Let's think of a complex question to ask here. Let's say, give me the sum of all sales in, let's see here. Let's do create a formula that sums the sales for product A in January, product B in March, and product C in February. Again, not a super complex formula, but you'll see here it's doing a sum if, right? And so it's made this a little more complicated than maybe you could do it on your own, but you can see it's creating a complex formula here for us where it is looking and finding where the value is February, the value is March, or the value is January, and then summing that up and dropping that into an entire formula, right? So you can get more and more complex with how you do this as you go, but you'll see having that data and that context in this conversation now allows me to just continue to prompt it, right? I don't have to go back and add anything. And this is why having everything in a single conversation is so important, because it gives you that ability to ask more complex questions as you go. So I could just keep asking as many questions of this set of data as I want, or I could drop in more data. Now, a couple things to just keep in mind when you are adding data into ChatGPT. There is a bit of a limit. And this is, again, we'll work our way through this when I talk about our special tool at the end of this lesson or the end of this series. But you only have the ability to import so much data into ChatGPT as the free version. You can copy and paste a table and drop it into ChatGPT. But if you drop in thousands of rows, eventually it'll just cut you off and it won't let you drop in the rest of those. So if that is the case and you do want to use a free tool like ChatGPT, you can always go in and do it in sections, right? So as long as it's in the same conversation, you'll still get all that context built into it, but it's just a little easier to use some very simple but more advanced tools to do some of the really high level and deeper analysis when you have lots and lots of data, which again, we'll get into here in a second. But just know that if you are dropping in data into ChatGPT for context, just know that you do have a bit of a limit you'll run into when you put in too much data in one go. So that is how you build complex formulas and how you can use ChatGPT to create any type of formulas, complex or not, that you need for your spreadsheet work. And again, remember, context is king, and keep it in a single conversation so that you can keep that context in one spot and you can allow yourself to continue to ask questions over and over again. Let's jump back into our presentation. So the last one here, and this should be secret number 3, my apologies, is going to be prompt engineering. So this is one of, again, those fundamental skills that you will need to learn when you're working with really any AI, but specifically ChatGPT. So this is where I think a lot of people run into challenges when they're working with ChatGPT, right? They think ChatGPT is not doing what I need it to do. Why should I even bother using it? I'm not getting good results, right? I'm not getting what I need. And so what I always ask of people is, do you remember the first time you learned how to use a search engine? Many of us weren't born with the knowledge of how to use a digital search engine, whether it be Google, Bing, whatever one you want to use. You didn't know how to use that when you first started using it, right? You had to learn how to create that search that you're doing. And that's similar to what we're going to be doing with ChatGPT, right? You need to learn how to create that prompt. And everything you've seen me do in this entire series so far, every single thing I've typed into ChatGPT has been a prompt. But there are some things we can do to engineer those prompts for better results. Now, what we were doing was relatively straightforward, but as I was telling you earlier, adding in some of those details and that context to my prompting can get me much better results. So let's go through some examples here. I'm going to show you what follow-up prompting is. We talked about that earlier as well. Let me open up ChatGPT again. And so, right, I could go in here and thankfully there's some data in this, but let's open another chat window so you can see one without any historical context or anything in here, right? So if I said, please give me the formula for the sum of my sales, right? And so it'll just say, okay, this is how you would do it with math and everything like that, right? However, it's not going to give me an actual Excel formula because it doesn't have my data or my context, right? So that's where you can engineer your prompt to be a little more specific and get better results. So instead we could say, please give, and again, you don't have to say please, you could just say create. It's up to you, right? Like the early wording in your prompting is not really important. What's more important is what we're going to get into here in a second, which is, let's say, please give me the formula that sums up my sales that are in cells A1, and then if you in spreadsheets, right, they do it this way, say through, right, instead of saying through. I think you can even say through if you want, and it'll work out. So you can say A1 through 100, right? And you'll see now, instead of it giving me all this math and everything, it's giving me an actual formula that I can use inside of my spreadsheet. And so that's where I have changed the way I've asked my prompt and the way I've engineered my prompt with ChatGPT to get me the results that I'm looking for. And this, again, goes back to that kind of that context is king that we've been talking about before, where you got to give it the context of where is that data in my spreadsheet, right? And so if you're struggling with getting results from ChatGPT and the output you're getting is not quite what you want, this is typically where I see most people are getting stuck, right? They're not providing that additional piece of context to fully engineer their prompt to get the result that they're looking for. Now, prompt engineering can go super, super deep, and because we've already taken a whole bunch of time, I'm not going to go too deep into it right now because again, in a second, I'm going to talk to you about a tool that's going to make this so much easier for you, and I don't want to overload you with more complex things, but this is really typically where I see people are missing out when it comes to their prompting and the way they're engineering their prompts, is they're just not providing enough detail and enough context to ChatGPT to get you the result that you're looking for. So let's jump back to our presentation real quick. And let me just ask you a question before we keep going. Hopefully you're enjoying this webinar. I really hope you're getting value out of this. Again, drop anything in the chat that you have that's a question. Please like the video if you are enjoying it. That would really help it get out to more people so we can help more people understand how to use AI as a tool and not as something that is coming for your job. I think this is something we all can benefit from. The amount of fear out there right now is just too high. So if you can share and like this, that would be super, super helpful. So what we've covered so far, we've covered how you can use ChatGPT to collaborate with ease inside your spreadsheets, how you can use ChatGPT to create those complex formulas, and we just talked a little bit about prompt engineering and explaining how you can solve for some of those issues that you're running into when you're creating your prompts. So, is everybody ready to take this to the next level? Drop it in the QA box. I'm ready, and we will move on. So I want to introduce a partner and a tool that we love here at Simple Sheets. It is called FormulaBot. So FormulaBot is that shortcut that I have been talking about to everything that we've learned today. Where ChatGPT is a wonderful, simple solution, FormulaBot has taken that and put it on steroids. So I'm going to show you some demos of how FormulaBot works, but what we are doing is something special with our friends over at FormulaBot. We are going to make AI work for you and not against you. We're going to set you up to benefit from the AI revolution and not fall behind. We're going to show you how to use AI directly inside your spreadsheets, so you don't ever have to worry about that context that we've been talking about, right? So you'll be able to analyze your data in seconds, and you'll be able to connect more data sources, right? Not all of our data is inside of a single spreadsheet or a spreadsheet at all. It might be in other sources. And our friends over at FormulaBot have built something special that allows you to take advantage of all of that. So let me open up my browser again, and I'm going to show you what FormulaBot is all about. So FormulaBot is a custom software built specifically to use ChatGPT and take advantage of it inside of your spreadsheets. So one of the awesome things, and this is kind of why I've been alluding to this as we've been going, and this is one of the things I love about the software, is you have the ability to actually upload your data. So that whole context piece we've been talking about, set it aside, throw it out the window. You don't need to worry about it when you can actually give your data directly to the AI that you're working with. And that's what FormulaBot is giving you. On top of many other awesome tools, right? It can create those formulas that you're looking for and make those advanced complex formulas in seconds for you. And it can deal with a lot of those simple tasks that you might be doing with your spreadsheets and make that a lot easier. It drops ChatGPT right inside your spreadsheets. I mean, look right here. You could supercharge your spreadsheet work with ChatGPT right inside of it. So these are things that make it so much easier for you to shortcut your way through everything we just learned. And that, I think, is what's going to make it so much easier for you to get value out of everything we've learned, right? AI, ChatGPT, is a very generalized tool, very general, useful for many things, but not specific for anything. And that's where tools like FormulaBot that are awesome and built specifically for spreadsheets can take everything we've talked about to the next level and truly supercharge your performance. I highly, highly recommend you give it a try, and it's going to be part of what we give you access to, or how you're going to get access to those free resources that we talked about. So sign up for FormulaBot, and we'll give you everything I was just talking about early on in this video. We're going to give you access to our brand new AI Masterclass for free. We're going to give you access to our Simple Sheets masterclass, or sorry, not Simple Sheets, Google Sheets, my bad, for free. And then we'll give you access to our 2 comprehensive Excel courses, both beginner and advanced, again, absolutely for free. You're probably picking up on a trend here. And then lastly, we're going to give you unlimited access to the Simple Sheets premium template library, also absolutely free. Just sign up for FormulaBot in a link down below in this video, and you will get all of this for free. This is a over $499 value that we're bundling in when you sign up for FormulaBot today. So just take a chance, give it a try. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. It's going to give you everything that we've been talking about in today's lesson, but it's going to give it to you on steroids. It's going to make it so much easier for you to take advantage of all the tips, tricks, and special advantages that you're going to get from AI without having to fumble your way through ChatGPT. ChatGPT is great, absolutely one of the wonderful tools, and it's free, which is good. And for some people, that might be what you need. But if you can spare the little extra, and I think it's $8-9 a month for FormulaBot, it's going to give you so much more value than what you could get out of ChatGPT. So here's how it works. Let's take a quick look. We went through that already. So you've got 2 choices. The real question is it worth the gamble of a few minutes of your time and just a few dollars to check this out, right? FormulaBot, there's I believe a free trial, and then you can sign up for, I believe it's $8 or $9 as of this video per month. Again, nothing really, small amount, like 2 coffees in a month will pay for your ability to basically maximum supercharge your spreadsheet work. It's the most like valuable thing I think you can do today is sign up and take advantage of this type of software so that you can start to really build yourself into the kind of career that you may want in the future. You know, this is something you're going to need to face eventually. AI is coming. It's already here. It's going to make a huge impact on all of our lives, especially if you're doing data work, right? And so being one of those people that not only knows how to use it, but knows how to use it on like supercharge mode, right? Take it to 10 and be one of the best people in your office with using your special, kind of your secret weapon, right? Which can be FormulaBot for you. That's going to make it so much easier for you to get value out of it. So if it can even do half of what I'm talking about, it'll pay for itself many, many, many times over. So again, get started with FormulaBot today. We're going to give you all of that stuff for free that I told you, all of that Simple Sheets access. It's over $499 in value. Again, absolutely for free, just for giving Formula Bot a try. So you're getting unlimited access to Simple Sheets, that entire library, all those amazing training materials. Again, free, 100% free, no strings attached. Just sign up for Formula Bot, give it a try, and you will get all of those valuable resources that we've spent years building and tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands of dollars creating for you for free. It's one of the best deals I've ever put together, ever seen in my career when it comes to spreadsheets. So click the link in the description below. It's going to only be valid for the next 24 hours. We can't give this out away forever. It's really only for those of you that have stuck through this presentation and have shown that you have a desire to advance your career, learn more about AI, and really want to take that next step forward for yourself. So we're going to make it available for all of you to take advantage of as soon as you can. So click that link again, 24 hours only, and I will see you inside. So without more, let me just check here. I want to see if there are any questions that came up as we were chatting. That way we can answer questions if needed. Looks like I'm not seeing any in here right now, so we might just wrap up here. We're kind of right at the limit here. I wanted to kind of, again, 30 to 45 minutes here for everybody. So I'm glad that we were able to kind of get through it quickly. Yeah, and I don't see any questions, so that's totally fine. And if you have any questions after this, of course, feel free to email us at support@simplesheets.co. Happy to answer any, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.